Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by telling them your name?
Sergeant Justin DeRosso,
And, sir, where do you work?
Cape Coral Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
Almost 18 years.
And in what capacity?
I'm the sergeant of the K-9 unit.
And were you the sergeant of the K-9 unit back on the 10th of October of 2019?
I was.
Okay. What were your duties at that point in time?
That particular day, I was riding as a two-man unit with another officer because my vehicle was being serviced. So while I waited for that to be done, I was just driving around with a traffic officer.
About what time was that?
Late morning, early afternoon.
And while your car was being serviced, did you ask your partner to do anything in particular that afternoon?
Officer Wilson actually advised me he wanted to go check out a undeveloped kind of area in
Why?
the North Cape. We were looking for the missing female Diane Ruiz.
So you became involved in the investigation of the missing person, Ms. Ruiz?
Ruiz, sorry, yes.
Was that in passing, or was that something that you were actively involved in?
That was in passing. I was not like assigned to the case or anything like that.
So you had some spare time on your hands?
You could say that, yeah.
Okay. And you and Officer Wilson then said, hey, let's go check out this area.
Yes.
Okay. And where did you go?
So along Northwest 4th Place, in that general area, but kind of north of Pine Island Road, there was a what would have been a development back during 2005, 2008, somewhere in then, and they had roads put in and a pond. And Officer Wilson was like, let's go drive that area and just check it out, because not a lot of people even know it's there. So we just met up over there, and we drove over there. There was another traffic officer in the area, and we just started to drive the perimeter of the lake, which is kind of in the center of what the development would have been.
What prompted you to go to that particular location?
Just the general vicinity of where Ms. Ruiz was last seen. This would have been west of that location. Again, we knew that there was officers, detectives out looking for her, actively looking for her. We just said, well, let's try this area over here. Again, it was Officer Wilson's idea to really go check that area out. So give it just go drive the area and see what we see.
So how many of you were there looking in that particular area at that time?
So me and Officer Wilson would have been in his vehicle, and then Officer Barkley was in his vehicle as well.
About how long had you been out there searching?
I would say, we were probably 15, 20 minutes maybe. It wasn't very long.
And then what happened?
So we're driving the perimeter of the lake and just, looking down in kind of the weeds and things of that nature. Saw a single vulture circling a wooded area to our east. And Officer Wilson and I both looked at each other and said, well, let's go over there and see what we find. It was kind of like an undeveloped lot with some trees on it, really, kind of a wooded lot area.
What did that single vulture indicate to you?
Well, vultures usually circle, carcasses, dead animals, dead bodies, whatever, so we thought that might be something to go investigate.
About how far away were you at that time when you saw that vulture to the body?
Maybe 2 blocks. It wasn't very far. 2, maybe 3 blocks.
Okay. So you see this vulture in the sky. It's circling. You then what? Getting back in your car and go where?
Well, Officer Wilson drove over up along Northwest 4th, and kind of, again, the lot was wooded. He pulled his, he had a F-150, so we pulled the truck up around into the empty lot, and as we kind of started to turn north in the northern direction, there is when we both recognized a body in the woods.
About how far off the road did you see the body?
We were off the road, so we had to kind of enter the lot and kind of make that turn before we really saw it. So 30 feet, 40 feet maybe.
So did you ultimately wind up getting out of your vehicle?
We did. Again, we didn't really get very close, but we began to tape the area off. I advised the detectives working the scene or the case. They were on another channel. Advised them what we had located. And again, we just started to make sure that the area was secure, put up crime scene tape, things like that.
So directing your attention to the image that we have portrayed up on the screen, states exhibit number 28. Does that fairly and accurately depict the area in which you found the body there at Northwest 4th Place?
Yeah, that would not be looking north. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would look east. Yeah, so right there on this lower part of the screen, that kind of loop that's the undeveloped community that we were investigating when we saw the vulture. So yeah, a couple blocks.
So after you went ahead and taped off that particular scene, what did you do next?
We just held the scene and waited for the detectives and other officers to arrive. And then later I returned because obviously they expanded the crime scene and did what they did. We have a mobile command vehicle, and I was just assigned to that for security of the vehicle, of the command vehicle.
And this was on October 10th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's here in Lee County?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness,
All right.
Judge.
Mr. Hollander?
No cross, Judge.
All right. Sir, you can step down.
Thanks.
Judge, at this time, I respectfully request that Mr. DeRosso be excused.
Any objection?
No objection.
He can be excused. State and call their next witness.
Judge, the state would call Ms. Jackie Fordham. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury by telling them your name.
My name is Jacqueline Fordham,
And,
manager of the forensics and the evidence units.
and what type of training experience allows you to do the job that you do?
I have a bachelor's in science degree from Florida Gulf Coast University in criminal justice studies. In 2007, I was hired on by the Cape Coral Police Department as a forensic technician, which is basically your entry-level crime scene investigator. I was later promoted to forensic specialist, and then in May of 2021, took on the supervisory role.
So back in October of 2019, what was your role at that point in time?
Forensic specialist.
And did you become involved in the investigation of a missing person by the name of Kristine Melton?
I did.
Did you also become involved in the investigation of a missing person also known as Diane Ruiz?
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about the investigation that you conducted as it related to Miss Kristine Melton. Were you involved with the processing of a black Nissan Versa that was attributed to Miss Kristine Melton?
Yes, I was.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention to the screen. I'm showing what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit number 5. Is that the black Nissan Versa that you were involved in processing?
Yes.
Could you please describe for the ladies and gentlemen in the jury what is involved in processing a vehicle?
For this specific case, the vehicle was towed into our secure evidence storage area. Once the search warrant was served, we photographed the outside of the vehicle, notate anything that stands out to our eyes, such as damage or blood, any type of shrubbery, or anything that seems a little bit off or unique to the vehicle. We do a 360 view photography of it. Once that is done, if any additional processing needs to take place on the exterior of the vehicle, that is done as well. That can include collection of paint scrapings or blood or just additional photographs if needed. We then make entry into the vehicle and do the same thing inside the vehicle. So 360, several views of all of the areas of the inside of the vehicle to include the items that are inside of it as well. We then start to document any specific evidence that we need to collect.
So directing your attention here then to what's been previously admitted as States 5A, that would be the back of the black Nissan Versa,
Yes.
and then 5B, That is the driver's side of the black Nissan Versa.
That's correct.
I note that the driver's side door, or at least the window anyways, has plastic wrapped around it. Are you aware of how that came about?
I am.
And how is that?
I was informed that a officer made entry to the vehicle by breaking out that window.
Would that be consistent with State's Exhibit number 5C, which reflects all the broken glass on the driver's side door as well as the floorboard?
It would.
Also inside that vehicle in State's Exhibit number 5D, we have a series of name tags. Now, were those found where in the vehicle?
I believe they were in the center console armrest area.
And then those items would have been placed on the passenger seat in order to photograph them, is that fair?
Yes, that's one of the seats.
I'd like to direct your attention specifically what's been admitted as 5E. What's the significance of this particular photograph to you?
That is the glove compartment that is located on the passenger side of the vehicle.
And then, was there anything that was located within that glove compartment?
Yes.
Of any note?
Yes.
What was that?
A cell phone?
Would that be one and the same cell phone that's reflected here in 5G?
Yes.
I'd also direct your attention here to what's been admitted as 5F. What are we looking at in that particular photograph?
This is a photograph of the passenger side of the vehicle from the driver's side perspective. On the right-hand side of the photo, you'll see the backrest of the seat, the plastic piece that goes along the door, as well as the seat belt of the passenger side of that Versa.
And I note that if one looks closely at this particular photograph, there appears to be some discoloration here on the plastic, as well as some here on the seat belt.
That is correct. There is staining there, as well as if you're sitting in the passenger seat, the right-hand side of that, you can kind of see that area of discoloration on the seat itself as well.
When you noted that discoloration, what did you do with that particular discoloration?
It was tested using a chemical called phenolphthalein, which is a presumptive test for blood. All areas that were just pointed out tested positive for blood.
Did you also search the rest of that vehicle?
Yes.
Okay. And did you find anything else of any note underneath the driver's side, or excuse me, the driver's seat?
Yes.
What did you see there?
An additional cell phone.
Would that be what's reflected here in State's Exhibit number 5I?
Yes.
And then obviously the back, which is reflected here in 5J.
That is correct.
Did you also find a Florida vehicle registration within that vehikel?
Yes,
Did you photograph that?
I did.
Judge, let the record reflect, I'm showing defense counsel some previously marked at State's Exhibit number 5K. Permission to approach?
You may.
Mr. Fordham, I'm handing you some previously marked to State's Exhibit number 5K. Ask you to take a look at that item. Do you recognize that?
I do.
And what does that appear to be?
It is the photograph of the vehicle registration that I took for the Nissan Versa.
And does that fairly and accurately depict the Florida vehicle registration that you recovered from that black Nissan Versa at the time that you processed it?
Yes, it does.
Judge, at this time, State will move State's Exhibit number 5K in evidence.
No objection.
Be admitted.
Permission to publish?
You may.
Thank you. How long did it take for you to process that vehicle?
It was processed over the course of 2 days, beginning on October 7th and ending on October 9th.
Were you also involved in attending the autopsy of Miss Kristine Melton?
I was.
And what was the purpose for you to attend the autopsy?
To photograph the decedent and also collect any evidence collected during the autopsy.
And did you collect any items as it relates to the autopsy?
I did.
Specifically, did you collect a DNA bloodstain card?
Yes.
Judge, let the record reflect I'm showing defense counsel from the previously marked State's Exhibit number 15. approach.
You may.
Ms. Fordham, I'm handing you some previous remarks to Stacy's in room 15. Ask you to take a look at that item. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize that?
It is the sealed envelope of the blood stain card of Kristine Melton that was collected by the medical examiner's personnel and then turned over to me. It is sealed with my initials, 4-digit, and the date of collection.
And is that item substantially same or similar condition as to when you last saw it?
Yes, with addition of the FDLE lab documentation.
When we say the FDLE lab documentation, you're referring to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes,
And the reason why the Florida Department of Law Enforcement seal would have been on that is because of the fact that you sent it off for forensic testing?
that's correct.
I'd like to direct your attention to October 10th. Did you have an opportunity to become involved in the investigation of Ms. Diane Ruiz when they located her body there at Northwest 4th Avenue?
Yes.
Would you please describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury how your involvement came about on that particular day?
I was on duty at the time at the Cape Coral Police Department as a forensic specialist. We were advised by our law enforcement partners that an unidentified body had been located and that they requested crime scene to respond to it.
Did you?
Yes.
And how did you go about doing that?
We had several forensic vehicles respond to include our major crime scene vehicles. Myself, my supervisor at the time, and an additional technician responded out.
Were you lead in this particular case on that particular day?
I was not.
Okay. Who was the lead?
Forensic technician Casey Buckner-Brager.
Okay. And you were one of the individuals who was assisting and observed and essentially kind of almost supervised in a
Yeah.
sense?
Correct. I assisted forensic tech Buckner-Brager in her examination of the scene.
So when you get to this particular location, and I'd like to direct your attention specifically to the screen there, case exhibit number 28. Case exhibit number 28 is an aerial photograph of where Ms. Ruiz was found and a series of tire tracks. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you arrived at that location, could you please tell us where it was that you essentially set your crime scene vans up and began your investigation?
So we had a vehicle stationed at the house, if you're looking at that photograph, to the left, and then our major crime scene van was to the right. We're leaving that main scene in the center. We began processing the scene by just the same way we do a vehicle, taking overall photographs of the area from all directions, including any evidence or potential evidence that we may find leading up to the actual site. And then we walk into the site and begin to take additional photographs.
And did you do that in this particular case?
I did not do that. Forensic technician Casey Buckner-Brager is the one who photographed the scene.
Did you have an opportunity to observe and review all of the photographs that were taken in this particular case?
Yes.
Do those photographs fairly and accurately depict what you recall her doing and seeing on that particular day?
Yes.
Judge, let the record reflect I'm showing defense counsel's previous remarks, cases in number 29, 29A, 29B, and then 29C. Fordham, I'm handing you some previous remarks, cases in number 29, 29A, 29B, and 29C. As you take a look at those items. You recognize those?
Yes, I do.
And what are those?
They are photographs of the scene located on the photograph that is on the screen.
And do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the scene that you observed on October 10th of 2019?
Yes, they do.
And those photographs are one and the same that Ms. Buckner-Brager took on that scene that you had an opportunity to review?
Yes.
Judge, State would move Stacey number 29, 29A, 29B, and 29C in evidence at this time.
No objection.
To be admitted.
Commissioner approach.
You may.
Commissioner publish.
You may.
Showing you some previously admitted, Stacey number 29. Ms. Fordham, what are we looking at in this photograph?
This is the scene-specific for where Miss Ruiz was found. If you're coming from that main street, this is into that field a little bit and to the left. It's where two bushes kind of merge together. Towards the right-hand side of the screen, you will see an image of the body that was located.
Was this body noticeable from the street?
No.
So it appeared to have been tucked away?
Yes.
And the only way you would have been able to observe this body is how?
You would have had to walk into that field and directly look at that bush.
So what we're looking at in 29A, what are we looking at there?
This is an additional picture of that scene, a little bit closer in and slightly to the left angle. The body is now located on the left-hand side of the screen.
29B?
Again, walking a little bit closer to the scene, the body is visible at the top center of the photograph, and underneath or closer to the bottom of the screen, you'll see one black shoe.
And lastly, 29C.
This is a photograph right next to the body that was located in the position that she was located in.
Was she missing a shoe?
She was.
Was Miss Ruiz immediately recognizable?
No.
Why not?
She was in an advanced stage of decomposition.
What do you mean?
If you look towards the center of the body, the belly area is bloated, showing the gases of the body starting to get larger and larger, which will expand the body itself. Her hands were very deteriorated. The skin was already starting to slip off, and her face was not recognizable. There was a very large amount of bug activity located all over her body as well.
When Miss Ruiz was discovered and recovered, was the medical examiner's office ultimately notified?
Yes.
Did they arrive on scene?
Yes.
And did they ultimately have Miss Ruiz removed from the scene?
Yes.
Did you touch the body at all while it was out in this state of decomposition out
No.
near the shrubs?
Sorry. No.
What did you do after you photographed Miss Ruiz in this state?
The medical examiner responded and took custody of the decedent. The area was searched once the body had been removed and additional photographs were taken. And then the scene was cleared once our investigation was complete.
Now, did you ultimately wind up attending the autopsy of Miss Ruiz as well?
Yes.
Obviously, same purpose that you attended Miss Melton's autopsy?
Yes.
And when you attended Miss Ruiz's autopsy, did you also collect bloodstain cards?
I did.
And that also direct your attention to when you processed that vehicle, did you also collect and take a blood sample swab of that vehicle as well?
Yes, multiple swabs were collected.
Fordham, I'm handing you some precinct marks, 16, 32, and 33. I ask you to take a look at those items. Recognize those?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize those?
They are the sealed bloodstain cards collected from the autopsy of Miss Ruiz, as well as the sealed swabs collected from the passenger door of the Versa.
Now, the bloodstain card, is that states exam number 32?
Yes, sir.
Is that substantially the same or similar condition as to when you last saw it?
Correct, with the addition of the FDLE lab stickers.
Okay, and once again, that would indicate that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement had reviewed this particular item,
Yes, sir.
and you asked that it be forensically examined.
Correct.
And State's Exhibit number 33 is what?
The blood sample swabs from the passenger interior door of the Nissan Versa.
And is that item in substantially same or similar condition as to when you last saw it?
Yes, with the addition of the FDLE documentation.
And lastly, that's due to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement having reviewed that particular item?
Correct.
And that you having sent it off to Florida Department of Law Enforcement to have it forensically examined?
Yes.
I have no further questions for this witness at this time, Judge.
Any questions?
Did you yourself or someone under your direction, were there any pictures of tread marks, tire marks, anything?
There were photographs of the tire impressions in the grass leading up to where Miss Ruiz was located. The grass was somewhat tall. It wasn't cut. And so actual impressions that would be able to be cast would not be possible, given that there's impressions mean like sand, so you can actually get an impression this is grass. So it would just be a visual kind of line that you'd be able to observe.
Did you take any swabs from the exterior of the vehicle?
Yes, there were multiple swabs collected from the bumper area of the vehicle.
And what happened to those swabs?
I'm not sure if they were ever tested, but they were collected during the search warrant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
No questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, you can step down.
Thank you.
So you can call our next witness.